Hey y'all, and welcome to How to Stay at Home Ec. Today I am coming to you with my glass of wine, and we're going to talk about wine for a hot sec. So, I haven't liked wine forever. For those of you who know me, I'm a big fan of wine. I think that while we're spending time at home, it's great to know what we love. It's great to know the things that we fall in love with. And I think that it's an excellent opportunity to be able to really kind of dive into your niches, to the things that speak to you. And I as much as there's a little bit of a danger about like diving into something that's alcoholic, I think that it's really important to be able to know a hobby, like to feel the difference between a hobby and an addiction. And we don't have to be super serious today. I'm not trying to be super serious, but I do think that there is a hobby side to wine, and maybe it can border on an addiction, but I love wine, and I'm here to tell you guys a few things that I know about wine and a couple of tips and tricks to start off liking wine if you want to like wine and you don't know how. How do I like wine? Every time I taste wine, I'm like, I don't really like this. But everybody else around me is like, ooh, this is so delicious. I taste berries. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm tasting right now, but it mostly just isn't really that good. If you hate it and you don't want to like it, then don't. But if you want to like wine, I think that there's a way to do it. So my very first glass of wine was a glass of Moscato at an Olive Garden. And I think my very first taste of wine was in college, and I think it was a Moscato by Sutter Home, like in one of those big old bottles, and the 7-Eleven straws made it all the way to the bottom, and one of my friends had gotten it, and I was like drinking out of it because it kind of tastes like juice. I didn't do a lot of drinking in college, but that was definitely easy, and it didn't really taste very winey. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about liking wine. So I wanted to like wine, and at a time after I graduated from college, so I didn't drink very much in college. When I graduated from college, I went to work at a restaurant where people were very wine centric. They were wine aware. They knew what they wanted to drink with their food, or they knew things about wine that I know, like in a way, and maybe not to even the same extent, in as much as I don't know a lot about wine, but I know more and more about wine by loving it and continuing to seek out different varieties of it and figuring out the ways that it tastes from different locations. So like these people had already done that, and I didn't know why or how they knew what they knew, but I loved all of the details about wine, and there was something about it, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something about wine that I just wanted to be a part of. Some information that I just I felt like almost it was, I heard someone say once that it was the liquid of the gods. And I just felt in a way that, and I know that sounds like maybe a little bit over the top, but in a way I felt like something that came from the earth in the way that wine did. I was like, that might have a ring of truth to it. So someone at that restaurant at the time, and it was a delicious restaurant. The owners were fabulous. They had spent some time in France. They wanted people to try foods, delicious, simple foods that were prepared delicately, in very French style ways. And it was an excellent place to work. It made me realize that food had levels and layers, and that wine had levels and layers, and that you could have drinks that went with food, not just wine, but like that everything kind of melded together. And I loved working in that restaurant. But I went to Olive Garden and I got a glass of Moscato because I think I had either asked someone at work Or I had asked the waitress, like, I really want to like wine. How would you start? And they said, do it sweet. So if you, like, let's say you like sweet things or you don't like sweet things. But I would suggest that when you're trying out wine for the very first time, a sweet white is a really great way to get started. Because a sweet white has almost like a syrupy texture that you can kind of get on board with. And some Moscatos and even Rosés have little bubbles in them. And so it almost gives you like, it's like what you think champagne would be like until you try champagne. And then you're like, wow, this is really like bubbles. And also a brightness that I wasn't expecting. A Moscato with bubbles is kind of like what you would expect a champagne to be, where it's just like it's sweet and it's silky and it's smooth and it's got bubbles, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that, like Sprite, right? But it's not Sprite, but it's like just kind of like that easygoing, palate friendly when you first start out anyway. It's just a really easy thing to drink. So my very first glass of wine at Olive Garden, and I'm like, this isn't too bad. And I think I drank like I said, guys, I didn't really drink that much. So I think I drank like maybe 2 or 3 glasses. And I was like, whoa, this stuff is amazing, which, you do with any beverage after 2 or 3. But I found like my niche, right? I knew that I loved Moscato at that time. And so the ways that people had told me is like, try sweet white and then go on to like a little bit less sweet whites. And then if you feel like you're ready for red, you can start off with a sweet red or a jammy red. And in like Dallas and in other places as well, people will start with like a Malbec, right? Because it's really, really easy on your palate. If you're starting off with a red, I think a Pinot Noir is a really great place to start. But I almost more so a Malbec, because a Malbec has some of those jammy qualities, even though it's not necessarily sweet. I don't believe I've ever tried Lambrusco, which is the sweetest red. But some people suggest that you start with the sweetest red and then go on to dry reds. So definitely start off with something sweet. Start off with just to get kind of the ways, to start to recognize the ways that your palate connects to wine. And you may find that you can't go past Moscato, or you can't go past Lambrusco, or maybe if you go past Pinot Noir, you're like, oh gosh, I just don't know. I just don't know about that. One of the things that I would say about if you're looking to try white wines, I think Moscato is a great place to start. If there's not a Moscato, a Riesling is a great place to start. If there's not a Riesling, Pinot Grigio, right? People walk into bars now, they order Pinot Grigio. I would say that Sauvignon Blanc is just a little bit further out. I would say that like there's like Viognier would maybe be about like a Riesling. And these are words, if you don't know these words, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm just giving you some names of things that you can try to like try out wines and be like, oh yeah, that's okay. And oh yeah, I'm not really sure about that. One of the things about Malbecs is I think that one of the reasons why they're so crowd friendly is that Malbecs, in as much as they are different based on the region they're grown in, right? As all wines are. The word is terroir. So basically it's like that the grapes and the things that grow in a place begin to take on the characteristics of the soil that brings them up. And I'm finding the same thing. Like I'm loving on cheese right now, and I'm finding the same thing about cheese. And full spoiler alert, Brett loves cheese and Brett loves wine, and it's because they change by the places that they're made in. They are exactly where they are. The connection that they have to the earth and the climate and their surroundings and the things that they eat form them into exactly what they are. And then artisans, right? Humans who put in years of study to try to figure out how to make them the best that they can be. Like that is just, I love that. It's delicious to me. Just to even think that that many things can come together to make something so beautiful. So full disclosure on that. But going back, Pinot Noir is grown in a lot of different places in the United States, and depending on whether it's a cold climate or a warm climate, you're going to get a lot of different flavor profiles within the same grape. So Pinot Noirs, I find, are, yes, usually a little bit on the lighter side, but they are definitely, there's a wide range of flavors within a Pinot Noir. So if you try a Pinot Noir and you don't like it, you may like another one. Malbec, I think, is a little bit more approachable in that I don't, at least to my knowledge, the flavor variances as far as the way that it hits your palate aren't as different because they can't be grown in as many places, to my knowledge. And the same thing with like maybe Tempranillo, right? Is it Spanish grape? It's a little bit sweeter. It's born in a bit of the heat. And we actually grow it in Texas. But because it can only be grown in certain places, you're going to get a lot more consistency. And so if you taste it and you like it and you get another one that's a different variety or a different, sorry, not variety, a different blender or a different like namesake on a different bottle, basically, it's going to taste somewhat similar. Same thing with Chianti, and I didn't bring any bottles of Chianti with me, but a Chianti that is from like the place in Chianti where it's supposed to be from with the little rooster on top, proper Chianti, because it's protected. The name is protected. Because it's from that place, there's a lot of similarities within the DOC, which is like the little chicken. So, all that to say, if you've never drank wine before and you want to try it, start off with something sweet, white, sweet red, or really there's a lot of rosés out there. You can start with champagne, although champagne is a lot of bubbles, or champagne or Prosecco. Some people really like Prosecco a lot. I brought with me today a bottle that I picked out from a rosé that I like a lot. It's called a Côte de Roses. My palate is a little bit drier. This is not a sweet one, but they do have sweet rosés. This is made from Grenache and Syrah, but they have rosés that are made out of like sweeter sort of variety grapes, and they have some with bubbles. So, start there. Drink it a little bit, and if you go into a restaurant and they don't have a Riesling or, like if you've been drinking Riesling, Moscato, Rosé, maybe Lambrusco, and they don't have what you're looking for, try a Pinot Grigio. Go the next step further, which is like a little bit drier on your palate, but definitely like with a Pinot Grigio, you can get like citrus fruits, you can get stone fruits like peaches and things. Like you can get some really good flavors. It's just not as sweet. And over time, your palate starts to understand that the gradients are so, so small, where it's like, oh, this is sweet. Oh, this is a little bit less sweet. Oh, this is a little bit less sweet. And then your palate kind of lands in a place that works well for you. Maybe that's, a Sauvignon Blanc all the way at one end, which is like the drier sort of limestoney, herbaceous sort of a situation versus the sweet. Or like a super, super dry cab that like you put it in your mouth and it sucks all the moisture out of your mouth, which sounds, when I'm saying it, not delicious at all, but it is to me once. But I tried, I'm telling you, when I worked at this restaurant, not the Olive Garden I just went to eat, but when I worked at this restaurant, where they were very wine centric, there was a cab that I tried once that I'm telling you, like I had only been drinking Moscato and only a little bit of that at that. And I put this stuff into my mouth and I was like, how can people drink this? And here I am today, folks, loving on it. The taste of leather and barnyard and all those things. The taste of, even to an extent, like rocks and forest floors and musk, spice and mocha, although those are, those sound delicious, but those are just some of my favorite flavors. So Those are the wine names. If that was a lot for you, go to the store, find yourself a bottle that's cute. This is how to like wine, guys. How to like wine 101. Find yourself a bottle that's cute. One of the reasons why I picked out this bottle is because it's called Côte de Roses. It has a rose on the bottom. It is the most unique bottle, one of the most unique bottles that I've ever seen, and I absolutely loved it, and I'm going to keep it. I've put roses in this probably 4 times next to my lover statue in my kitchen. It's had 2 roses in it. When the roses die, I put it off to the side and I bring it back out again. So find yourself a bottle that you think is cute. Find something maybe that you think is meaningful, because we know that our eyes are a good chunk of our palates, right? If something looks delicious, the chances of us finding it delicious or finding it more delicious even than it is, that gap is bridged by our eyes. So if you find yourself a bottle that you think is super cute, the chances of you liking that bottle are going to be like to the 9th. It's going to be like, oh yeah, well, I picked this bottle out. It's super special. Like, I love this. Maybe you won't like it, but the chances of you liking it are that much more because you've been thoughtful about picking out a bottle of wine. Case in point, my solstice bottle. I brought out my solstice bottle because I kept it, because I liked it that much. Jeremy bought this for me, not for the solstice, but because it said Lapis Luna on it. It's a woman, and she is looking at the moon. There's something crazy going on in this. Like, something absolutely, like, surreal happening. It's a Zinfandel, which is actually one of my favorite varietals. One of my favorite grapes. It's usually spicy. It's not sweet. It can be lighter or darker, but it's good with food, and it almost gives like a depth of flavor lower than anything that I'm eating. So it kind of draws my palate down, and I like that a lot. And then on the back, it says, look beyond the dangers of the forest. Be brave. So there are some wine bottles, and not all wine bottles are crazy, but some you're like, I have to have that because it's so cute. And even if you don't drink them, I think that some wine bottles are super artistic. Look at the cork. This is the cork. It's got a little moon on it. And then it's got lapis luna around the edges. And then the inside. Yeah, you can actually see that a little bit better. This was the top when we opened it up. But my little moon cork. So if you go to the store and you're not sure what to drink, we talked about the varietals before, the things that you would start off with if you're just starting out wine. Another way to start picking out wine, I guess, is to go with what you're eating. There's a lot of things online, and maybe we'll have a wine pairings class sort of thing at some point, but I'm not going to go through all that now. If you're making a special dinner and you really want a wine to go with it, find out which wine goes with the food that you're making the best. Find a super cute bottle or something that's meaningful to you. Bring it home, and at the very least, it's going to be a super cute bottle of wine to set on your table or to set on your counter before you eat. And then you get to taste the wine. And then maybe when you're tasting the wine, you taste it with a little bit of food, and that makes you like it more. So, last but not least, I have a bottle here. It's cute and gold. I believe Jeremy picked this one out as well. It is a Rioja, so that is Spanish, if I believe I'm correct. And this, yeah, no, it was imported. Yeah, product of Spain. But it said Washington on it, and I was like, but yeah, it's it's from Spain. In order to be able to get into a bottle of wine, you have to be able to get into a bottle of wine. Okay? So, if you go to like an Airbnb, or maybe you're even at your house, this is the only kind of wine key I use. Absolutely love these wine keys. They're super inexpensive. You can get ones that are like space age grade, and I absolutely I don't know how to use those, and it's difficult for me. This is a waiter's wine key. It's got a little knife on it. The things that you're looking for in a wine key is it's got the tiny little knife for foil. This is actually a bottle opener. Gotta love that. It's got to have this arm on it, and the arm has to bend a little bit, okay? When you're looking, if you're going to get a waiter's wine key, and I can open up a bottle in very little time with this guy, like, boop, it's open. This has to bend a little bit. Has to have this little crease. Has to be able to bend. And then, so this is, it's got the four directions, north, south, east, and west, right? Something to hang on to, corkscrew, little guy with a bendy, and a knife. That's what they've got to have, okay? A lot of people have these ones, and I am invoking my my garden frog to help us out with this one. Garden frog. They are shaped like this, okay? And when you usually take them out of your drawer, and I can't stand these things. I get it wrong every time. It's difficult. I just don't know. When you get them out of the drawer, a lot of times they look like this, okay? The corkscrew is right here, those little feet. So the corkscrew is down here. It's got a little roundy right here, and then these are down, and it's got the bottle opener that's like right here, only it's got it right here. There's a hole in the middle, okay? So the way that you go in with a bottle of wine is, I know, it's difficult. YMCA, why? Lift him up. Hold on. Going down into the bottle. Unscrewing. Now already we're in having a little bit of a problem because you're going right through the foil. You never want your wine to touch the foil. It's a no-no. Straight up, don't let your wine touch the foil. Once it touches metal, there's like a little bit of a reaction that happens, and anything that touches the metal is going to taste just slightly off. There's going to be a tinge. So if you have one of these little guys, why? And you're going to go like this. Try to either cut off the foil or peel up the foil, or when you get done, so you're going to go in, right? He's all the way down here. This is because the corkscrew's gone in. And then you push this little guy and he pulls up the cork. So you push down the arms, it pulls out the cork, boop, and then you've got a bunch of nasty metal. Pull off the metal before you start pouring people drinks, and make sure that the metal comes down to here. Usually there's a little bit of a crease in there, and that's fine. That's how you do. So that's how you use Mr. Frog, or the wine keys that you have. If you've got one that's fancy and like mechanical, I can't help you with that. Read the instructions. But if you're in a place and you don't know how to use one of these, or you want something that's $5 to $15 and it works a treat, this is the way to go. So, learned this in the French restaurant. You open up the knife. You're talking to your guests. You cut right there, okay? There's that nice little ridge right here. And this guy's got little knifey bits on him. So you cut right at the ridge. So you hold it down against the ridge and you go in circles. And you're actually moving the knife more than you're moving the bottle. You try to move the bottle as little as possible. In fact, you kind of want them to be able to see the front of the bottle the whole time. And then you've pushed in, so there's that. It goes. And you've got yourself a nice little foil coin. This is what you see, right? Good times. So we're folding in this. We're pulling out the little wand, corkscrew, into a T. So you want to put this just slightly offset of center. You don't want to go actually right into the center because you'll end up being off to the side. So you want to put the center of this in the center, which means that I'm just a little bit, in your guys' vantage point, I'm a little bit above the center. So I'm going to puncture in. And because I'm talking to you guys and you're not supposed to move the bottle, I'm actually going to move only the corkscrew. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not moving the bottle at all. I'm talking to you guys. It's normally not in front of your face. You're saying something very witty. Spanish wine, Rioja. And maybe it doesn't make that sound, which is kind of funny. Okay, so you've got this. What now? It looks like it's planking. Well, because you have something that has a little guy on it. Oh gosh, I got confused. You're going to take this in 2 steps. So you're going to push in so that this meets the top, and you're going to go 1 halfway, 2. There it is. You notice you didn't hear anything when it came out. You're not popping it. The only thing that popping sounds pretty good with is champagne or Prosecco or something that comes with a lot of bubbles. But you technically, that's not the classy part of champagne. Champagne or wine is not about the pop. It's about the legs and the presentation and the way that it goes into the glass and the way that it foils around the glass, right? You'll notice, oh, I thought I was right. Oh yeah, the bottle is still facing you. I've got my wine cork. I'm going to set this guy off to the side. You'll notice there's no foil in the way. So if I'm at a restaurant or I want to be super fancy, also you'll notice because I went off center, there's no breaking of the corkscrew through the side of the cork. You don't really want that. If you have to rebottle this, recap this, you don't want to have holes in the side of this cork. You want the cork to be whole, which means that, you want to go off center, which we did. You've got a whole cork now, which is great. If you're thinking about wine, one of the things that you would do if you wanted to be very fancy, last little bit, is that you smell the cork. If it smells winey, and by that I mean sort of luscious, great. If it smells like vinegar, not great. You can pick up, I would say maybe 2 or 3, and this is my small mind, guys. I'm not a sommelier. I don't know these things, but I would say you could probably pick up 2 or 3 flavors or 2 or 3 scents from this cork. But mostly what you're looking for is a fresh / bottleness that is not off. You don't want anything that just makes you go, whew. You don't want anything that is vinegar forward. And if you ever see that the red goes all the way here, throw the bottle away. If you find that the red in the cork, or if you're at a fancy restaurant, let's say you're at a fancy restaurant, they'll do what I just did. They'll hand you the cork. Now, if it's a good sommelier, if it's a good restaurant, if they were to look at the cork and see that the wine went all the way to the end, which means it's oxidized and terrible, they wouldn't even give you this cork. They'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, miss. I'll be right back. But if you're in a place and they don't do that and you see that the wine goes all the way to the bottom or the top, as it were, send the bottle back. Now, what they will do is, so you've got your cork, they hand it to you so that you can smell it. To me, this smells like blackberries and Luxardo cherries and maybe a little bit of pepper. I love that. There's my 3, right? That's delicious. Thank you. I'm going to take a drink of the drink I was drinking before. So they've got your glass. Your glass is clean, unlike mine. If you ordered the wine, they will pour you just a bit. And they'll twist the bottle a little bit when they're coming up so that it doesn't drip down the sides. If it drips down the sides, like this, because I'm not quite all the way practiced. Y'all haven't been coming over to my house, so I don't have all the things. But if you have this little drip right here, you'll notice that they stand with a napkin. Perhaps like this. And they will go unbeknownst to you, they will wipe the top, because drips on a white tablecloth or on a table generally of the wine that you're paying for the whole bottle, holy crap, man. And this is only if you buy the whole bottle. Sorry, guys. This isn't if you buy a glass. If you buy a glass of wine, people are going to plunk it in front of you. Or if they're super fancy, they're going to bring you a carafe and a glass, and they'll pour in part of it and leave part of the carafe. But, so you've got your tiny little sample. They'll only pour you a little bit, but it's so that you taste the bottle before you serve it to the rest of your guests. Fancy times. You'll take it, swirl it around. Now, the world, or at least parts of the world, have come to the conclusion that airing out your wine isn't necessary. But you still swirl. Smell? Whew. That is like leather. And drink. Yes, sir. Thank you. And then they will pour for all of your guests, and they will pour you a glass. And they should all be the same amount, and there should be some left in the bottle. That's how to be fancy with wine. We were going into this on how to like wine, but there's some little wine etiquette things that just tweaked their way right in there. I love wine. I hope that for you too. If you don't like wine, that's fine. I hope you had fun watching this video today on how to stay at home ec. Let's talk about more things on another day. For right now, I'm going to take my bottle and my little glass. See if I can do it. Woo. Oh, another drip. And I will see you on the next episode of How to Stay at Home Ec.